Good Sunday morning and welcome to WGN-TV Political Report. I'm Paul Lisnick. We begin this morning with the news that former President Trump and presumed GOP presidential nominee Donald Trump is now a convicted felon. On Thursday, a New York jury found Trump guilty on all 34 counts of falsifying business records. The case stems from the reimbursement of hush money paid to adult film star Stormy Daniels, meant to cover up a potential sex scandal before the 2016 election. Trump is the first U.S. president to ever be tried and convicted in a criminal case. It's unclear what it will mean for his political future as Republican lawmakers and others support sticks by Trump's side. Congressman Mike Quigley, a Democrat from Chicago, joins me this morning to talk about that and a lot more. Congressman, good to see you again.
Glad to be back.
I'm glad you were able to come in on just kick off with this topic because you are a politician, but you are a lawyer. And you were one of the few tweets that came out after the event, or at least you issued a statement, in which you talked about respecting the jury system. You didn't go political. Can you do this distinction of why so many people are political with it when this is a legal issue?
I think the rule of law demands a respect. And I think that former President Trump, I thought his 4 years were an assault on that rule of law, and I didn't want to be hypocritical. I think you look at this and respect the jury system. Obviously, as a criminal defense attorney, 10 years full time, I didn't always agree with them, but you must respect that process. It's very dangerous not to, and to make it all political begs that all jury decisions become political.
Of course, on Friday morning, the former president held it wasn't a press conference, he just gave a speech in which he basically went through all the evidence that shows that he didn't do anything and he wanted to testify, but was told you better not because you'll get in trouble and all that. As I watched it, I thought, well, this could have been your case, all of these defenses that you're presenting. Later in the morning, President Biden went on the air and said basically what the former president is doing is reckless, dangerous, and irresponsible. Those are two very different scenarios here. As a congressman, what's your concern moving forward?
I think my colleagues and I are concerned that his language and those around him incites violence, a disrespect of the process, at the very least decorum, and invites further violence against members of Congress and their families, as we have seen.
So I'm not going to turn you into a political analyst, but coming up will be a debate on June 27th, and then the sentencing on July 11th, and then the RNC, of course, the week after. Just sort of curious, as a Democrat and working with Democrats, how should the Democrats play those moments going forward? You know, President Biden basically kind of was very quiet about this trial as it went on. Do Democrats need to speak up?
I think it's fair. Who's your audience here? All right. I think we all understand that none of this is going to change the base of both parties. But President Trump won in 2016 with a margin within 3 states that could fit in Soldier Field. So it's a very narrow audience that we're talking to. And I think the polling shows that they're the ones that could be influenced by this, pointing out the fact that the president could have tried the case any way he wanted. He is the ultimate person who decides if he testifies or who the witnesses are. So that was his call, and he is now a 34-count felon. So I don't think you have to sound the trumpets. I think you raise ipsa loquitur, right? It speaks for itself, but you talk about it in a manner that respects the system.
Let me turn to the international situation, specifically Ukraine. This is an area you are very involved in and respected in Congress for the work you've done. I know towards the end of last week or this past week, you were given a briefing. You've met with Zelensky. Can you update us, as you can, about the status?
I've been in Ukraine 3 times since the war started, in Poland and other parts of Europe, analyzing this, talking to our military experts, Polish and Ukraine. I was very concerned of the fact that we got this funding to them very, very late. That pipeline was empty. It gave Putin an opportunity, which still poses a threat to the Ukrainians. That they were being outshelled on artillery 10-1. The briefings I have is that that pipeline is running fast and hard. There's a lot of catching up to do. It's probably going to make it difficult for Ukraine to have a sustained offensive before the end of the year. We're hoping this high-tech and these weaponry will help them with an advance next year.
Let's shift over to the Middle East. A lot of pressure on President Biden to do something, right? We know the unrest that's in the country over this. On Friday, the president gave a speech saying he backs an Israel-backed ceasefire proposal. I think I've heard that music before. There are people telling him to cut the arms and munitions he's giving to Israel. Do you have advice for the president on where we should go with this right now?
I think he's doing the right thing. My advice to Israel is you need a ceasefire too. Going after Hamas should have always been far more surgical. And I say this not because Hamas isn't an evil and an extraordinary threat. 85% of their funding is coming from Iran. But we have to remember that it's not just a military force, it's a movement. And the manner in which they moved forward on this war has made a recruiting tool for Hamas. And you're never going to beat that if it just continually rebuilds upon itself.
With this level of unrest, the DNC is basically just a couple of months away here in Chicago, so you've got your eyes on that. What should we be concerned about the protests or violence or anything happening here? And I know some money's been appropriated by Congress for it.
Yeah, I was the lead to get up to $75 million for security money for Milwaukee and Chicago. The fact that they're back-to-back in the same metropolitan area adds to that risk. You know, we think of the protests. Obviously, my first concern is that people have the right to exercise that First Amendment right. But there are very legitimate concerns on an international and domestic level, people being inspired from across the world. So we should remind ourselves that we can't have amnesia about 9/11, that there are very real threats out there, certainly enhanced by the fact of the conflict that's taking place in Gaza and Israel. And we need to be very mindful of that. So I'm excited about the convention in Chicago. I'll be apprehensive and working on this, and I'll be glad when it works well and we're done.
You know, it's interesting. You just mentioned Milwaukee, the Republican convention. Do you have similar security concerns there? Because that's a very different vibe.
Well, very concerns there. And the fact that they're in the same metropolitan area, actually those threats build and make it worse. And the fact, Milwaukee's, as you know, a very small city. I think there's 40 hotels hosting DNC. There aren't 40 hotels in Milwaukee. There will be RNC delegates staying in hotels around O'Hare, Rosemont. That travel distance adds to the risk as well.
Biden, who was doing a lot of campaigning, talks a lot about social issues, abortion and discrimination, a bunch of various things, but economy is always the decider in these elections. Have you talked to him about dealing with the economy when he gives speeches?
I think when he speaks at caucus, all the Democrats talk to them. And I think the message is, you know, you should win this election. The old line, it's the economy stupid, is the right message. I think what they want him to do is to quit saying it's the best economy in the world and everything's great, and understand the pain that's out there, principally due to inflation, and recognizing we still have work to do there. That's a winning message, because I think he's going to win this race if he alters that message and the economy stays where it is.
And finally, I know that obviously members of Congress love to talk about projects they're bringing home. Yeah, you've got ranking positions on your committee, so just a couple of things. You got all sorts of things happening, but first responders efforts and O'Hare. Talk to me about those two things.
Yeah, the tragedy of the number of first responders, police and fire, that we lost last year, I thought the least we could do is bring back, we're getting 2,000 bulletproof vests because our police have to pay to replace their vests. And we're having air breathing equipment for our firefighters. So it was at least part of that, of why it matters so much. And recognizing O'Hare is the economic engine of the region, but we need to do something about the noise. So we're putting money toward mitigation to help soundproof homes, businesses, and schools.
I bet you people didn't realize that cops have to buy their own vests.
They have to buy the replacement vest. It's a mistake. We got 500 for them in a funding I got a couple years ago. We're going to do another couple thousand this time. It's important to do because it keeps them safe, but also sends a message that we're behind you.
Congressman Mike Quigley of Illinois' 5th District, thank you for being with me. I appreciate it. Have
you.
a good rest of your Sunday. And we're going to take our first break. Up next, we're going to Springfield.
We can't just keep going to the taxpayers to solve your spending addictions.
A spending plan so controversial, even some Democrats crossed the aisle to vote no inside the overnight debate that left us with a $53 billion budget. House Republican leader Tony McCombie is with me next. And later, facing calls from more than half of City Council to step down, CTA President Dorvell Carter remains defiant at a tense committee hearing. That's later this half hour. Don't go anywhere.